Appreciate you having me.
And we got to throw on the air horns for AJ Sanchez.
Love it. Love it.
Yes, man. How are you doing?
Man, good. I feel like I should be fist bumping first thing in the morning here, just hearing that sound. So,
I know
yeah, good.
it's not easy to do the interviews in the morning. I understand that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just a night owl anyway, so it's just it's morning takes some adjustments. So, but I think I'm good to go.
Awesome, awesome. I think I can. I know I can see for myself that I can definitely understand the night owl thing. Elle, I'm sure you can understand a little bit of that
Uh,
too.
I couldn't tell you the last time I went to sleep at like a respectable hour.
No,
I just,
no.
I mean, if I'm awake, earlier than like 9 a.m. out here, it's a miracle.
Yeah, I feel you there. I feel you.
But you guys know how it is, right? We got to get the content. We got to get the reach and the engagement. So we
Mhm.
hustle. That's how we
Yes,
do.
sir.
Absolutely.
So AJ Sanchez, we always ask everyone that's a guest on the podcast how you were first introduced to pro wrestling.
Yeah. So, from what I recall, it was at a young age. I think my uncle enjoyed it, and it was just WWF on TV, to my knowledge. And I just remember like early images of like probably late '90s or sorry, early '90s IRS promos and stuff. Like, there's a photo of me in front of the TV watching an IRS promo. So that's what happened. I would assume my uncle, and yeah, on TV.
That's interesting that you bring up Erwin R. Shyster.
Mm,
It's interesting.
yeah,
Great character, first of all. I love what he was able to do with that character. Come, like, because I knew him as Mike Rotunda,
yeah,
so there was a bit of a switch to see the IRS character. But you acclimate, and obviously he had an impact on you. Now we've all fallen in love with wrestling collectively, but out of the three, only one of us is doing this professionally. So I gotta
mm.
ask you, man, how did you know this is something you actually wanted to do?
That's a great question. I don't know that I knew. I got started at the age of 16, and I had watched some
Yeah.
local wrestling shows here in Winnipeg, and I just so happened to have a buddy by the name of Kyle who also wrestles as a man named Spanky here locally. He was refereeing some shows at Chalmers Community Center, and I saw that after him and I played sports together, and I saw that. And I was like, hey, man, how do I get involved? I don't know what to do or how to do so, but he introduced me to the right people, and the rest is history.
Yeah, the hustle of the pro wrestler. I find that there are a lot of similarities when it comes to artists as well. The music game and the wrestling game are very, very, very similar. The hustle and the struggle is very, very similar.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I 100%.
when you
Yep.
were introduced to the right people, what was the learning curve like? Did you come with an athletic background already, or were you coming in like super just green?
Well, yeah, coming in super green, but I had an athletic background. I played
Yeah.
sports all my youth. I
Okay.
played football, I played baseball, I played a
Okay.
bit of everything, volleyball, all that fun stuff. But yeah, so I got introduced to a man by the name of Rob Stardom, and my training was absolutely horrible. So it lasted maybe 4 weeks, and the next thing I knew, I was in a wrestling ring. So it wasn't
Man.
good. So, but I was just young and just happy to be there.
Right.
Wait, but
Right.
did you know at the time that your training was, I guess, under par then, or did you sort of realize it after the fact?
After the fact, because I think at that time I didn't know what was right, what was wrong, what I was doing, and I think I learned how to take a bump, throw a sidewalk slam, and then next thing I know, I was in the ring.
After that first match, how did you feel the next morning? I just have to ask.
I don't recall feeling as sore as I do these days, but
Okay.
'cause I
Okay.
was still young. I was 16, so I was probably
Okay.
already jumping around and rolling around, and my body wasn't the way it is now. But I'm sure I was elated and just happy to have done it. But yeah, it probably wasn't very good. I wish I had footage of that first match.
16 is young to get into, I mean, anything as
Yeah,
serious as
absolutely.
wrestling. Uh, how is the family feeling about that?
I don't think they knew what to expect or what would come
Okay.
of it, but they
Right?
they were supportive. My mom dropped me off at training the first day, and
Nice.
it was, yeah.
Nice.
So they've been pretty supportive.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because it's I mean, it's not the most conventional of trades to pick up, and a lot of families have sometimes expectations of their kids,
Mhm.
and you know, so it's good to have that support
Yeah,
early on.
yeah. No, they've been good. Like, my family runs a DJ business, so I've kind of grown up in that. So I don't know that there were any specific expectations on what I would do as far as the future. But I
Right.
always kind of knew that I would stick close to the family business, but then be able to also do the wrestling on the side as well.
Now, I was going to ask you about the family business, right?
No, I didn't. So shoot, what do you got?
The DJ company. So what type of DJ services y'all provide?
Yeah, so like socials here in
Okay.
Manitoba,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
weddings,
Mm,
that kind of stuff. Yeah,
nice.
so my dad's been doing that since like the early '80s, and I just kind of grew up in it, and
Okay.
I love it, and probably helped set me in the right direction as far as personality and being able to speak in front of audiences and stuff like that for wrestling.
Mhm. Do you,
Exactly. That's what. Go. Sorry, Al. Go ahead.
oh, I was going to ask, is it ever a challenge to sort of like juggle both hustles at the same time? I mean, I imagine there's probably been some instances where it's like, you know, there might be a wedding or something booked, and oh, but I gotta I gotta wrestle for the title this weekend too. You know.
Yeah, it's tough because both are weekend gigs essentially. So just you balance, and luckily my family's pretty understanding. And if I can get the time to be on the road, there we make it work. It's been pretty easy to balance. So, but sometimes business comes first, and that's what you got to do.
Right.
True enough. True enough. So you mentioned first training with Rob Stardom. Who was the next person you trained with that you felt was a better fit?
Yeah, so I lucked out. And so I started in 2002, and then got minimal training, and then was just kind of left to the wolves to kind of figure it out. But about 3 years later, Johnny Devine, who was the former TNA X Division champion,
Yes.
was staying in Winnipeg with a company called AWE, and we got the opportunity for at least a couple months to get in the ring with Devine and you know learn properly how to do certain
Right.
things and that kind of stuff. It wasn't the longest time, but it was the opportunity to do that, and I credit him with learning certain things that I just hadn't learned before.
Yeah, and with someone who has the experience that he had, I mean, I would think great resource, especially after the last training experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had the opportunity to work with him in the ring. I never did, but yeah, just a wealth of knowledge, and very grateful for my time with him. Obviously.
When you had originally trained with Rob Stardom, were there any injuries you recall after training with Johnny Devine that you knew you could have been prevented if you had known better?
I wouldn't say injuries because I don't recall anything serious happened. There were one time in
Okay.
training with Rob. I recall one guy picking me up for a body slam and just falling straight on my head. But nothing significant as far as injury goes. But I think
That's good.
the lack of training. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've been pretty blessed throughout my wrestling career here to not have suffered anything serious. But I think um, the regret in having training or getting trained the way I was initially was that it probably took me 5 to 10 years to learn what I could have learned within the first 1 to 3, just from not having the people there to guide me in the right direction.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
wrestling is so crazy like that because based on and coming from non-workers, from the non-worker perspective, you can
Mhm.
tell that the journey is long because some performers don't hit their stride until a little bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes years to perfect, what we do, and even if you're given all the tools, I don't know that everybody completely adapts and becomes a star, or everybody's different. You got to kind of work towards people's strengths, and one guy, you're as a trainer, you're going to give them all the tools that you have, but not all of them may be physically capable or mentally capable to do everything the exact way that, say, I would. So it takes years to figure out, and hopefully most guys eventually do. Not all do though, but it is what it is.
Well, I think it's safe to say that you, AJ, have definitely done that. You are definitely a veteran of the Winnipeg scene. You've been involved for quite some time, and that's why it was really important to get you on the podcast because you bring such a wealth of knowledge with all the experience that you've been able to amass. Now, the the CWE promotion, you're also affiliated with CWE.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Now, CWE has been around for how long?
uh, CWE began in 2009.
Right.
Yeah, it was Danny Duggan's brainchild,
Yeah.
and I was kind of, I guess you could say, the right hand man, helping bring that vision to light.
So, what was it like looking at the business from the other end, from the non-performing end?
Yeah, it's different. You get to, it's you're not just a performer worrying about yourself. You're now on the other side, and not only are you worrying about all the talent on the show and the venue and all the little intricacies that come with that, but having run the DJ business, I was trying to help do something different at the time locally. Providing proper sound, proper production, proper lighting, like that. So you're not just worrying about yourself. You're now worrying about a plethora of other things, that go with making sure that a show is successful.
Is it difficult to lock down venues for a wrestling show?
In Winnipeg, it's especially difficult. Yeah, 'cause we don't have access to all the venues that we could, like we did back in 2009 when we started. There's been some things that have changed over the
Mhm.
years that don't allow us into certain venues, unfortunately. So
Mm,
it can be tough, but luckily that was Danny's main expertise, and he kind of handled that stuff. So I never really had to worry, which is great.
right. Yeah, Danny Duggan. We got to shout out and salute Danny Duggan as well. Also, whew, geez, you guys really like you guys kind of hold Winnipeg on your shoulders. You know what I'm saying?
You said it, but I won't argue with you. So
Hey, it's real, and you're a super heavyweight, so you're Atlas up in this motherfucker.
yeah, okay. When you put it that way, yeah, it's great. I love it. Yeah.
That's for real. That's for real. There's a CW show coming up, right?
Yeah, there is Friday, November 17th. It is the Rumble to Remember in Winnipeg,
Yes.
which is always, extremely successful and very, very entertaining, for me personally, but I think for a lot of people.
What is that card looking like?
Oh boy, action packed. So we've got the 50-man Rumble to Remember, which is the largest Rumble style battle royal in all of North
Crazy.
America.
That's wild.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah. So I believe we began doing that in like 2011 or 12, if I recall. And it's just one of our favorite events throughout the year. You just get to see a lot of blasts from the past, and people that maybe haven't done this in a long time, but
Yeah.
take the opportunity to come out. You just get to revisit old friends, and see people that you haven't seen for a while, and then you get to watch the match itself, which is always full of some fun surprises and things like that. So it's a great time.
Where will that be taking place in Winnipeg?
That is at the Holy Eucharist Hall on Monroe Avenue. I don't recall the exact number, but it's on
Okay.
Monroe, the Elmwood
In
area.
EK.
EK, yeah, there you go.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
Now you also have coming up in December the Pro Wrestling Weekend Camp. Tell us about that.
yeah, absolutely. So what we're looking to do with that is myself and Kevin Cannon have and I myself personally have been doing it probably since 2013 um, with CWE and the Elite Wrestling Academy. We've been running the full time training here in Winnipeg, the only place that's running full time wrestling training throughout the year, and we decided to try and do a pro wrestling weekend camp. We've done it in the past, and what it is it's the opportunity to step foot in the ring without the full time commitment that is required if this is something you actually want to follow through with and go through with. So it's the opportunity to get in the ring, do a couple things, see what it feels like, and over a 2 day period, and decide if this is something you'd like to do, or maybe even just fulfill a bit of a dream, and for people that have just always wanted to, but were never sure how to go about it.
Now, when you run these camps, what 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 does the demographic look like?
Wide range. We have had people, as young as 15 reach out that were interested, and we've had people all the way to their mid to late 40s that, like I said, maybe were interested in trying to live a dream that they just haven't done or haven't tried, and young kids
Let's
that
go, Al.
are interested.
Let's go,
There you
Al.
go. Yeah,
I
the
mean,
time.
damn, that's
Al, you
kind
had
of
a
wild
question?
to. I just imagine it'd be pretty wild to sort of take that first bump at like age
Oh,
45.
Yeah, it'll wake you up a little bit. Absolutely.
Yeah, like I've never, obviously I've never wrestled or anything like that, but I've got I've got some friends who are sort of closer connected to it, and one thing that they told me was that, man, like I went into a ring for the first time, and I think people don't realize how stiff the ropes are and how much it actually
Yeah.
hurts to to bounce into them on an Irish whip. So always a little bit of a shocker for anyone, because I mean, guys like yourself and the folks that we see on TV, they make it look so easy.
oh God, yes.
Yeah, it takes years to get acclimated to the idea that you're just, what you're putting your body through. But yeah, those ropes, it's cliche. You hear it all the time. Like most rings, those ropes are steel cable. You know what I mean? Wrapped in
Exactly.
some
Oh my
some
God.
tape and whatever. Yeah. So not all rings. Some are real rope, um, which is different slightly. They just feel different. They hit different. But yeah, man, they're steel cable, and like yes, the ring's a little bouncy, but there's an inch of padding on some wood and steel. Like it's all, it's been said a million times by a lot of people. So it hurts. Everything you do in that ring hurts. But, it takes some time to build a callus for all that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. Building a callus for it, because a flat back, right? Just taking that bump, like just the thought of it, because the way you describe it is exactly what it is. So you have to acclimate your mind to, so this is what I'm going to do for the next 30, 40 years. Okay.
Yeah. It
That's
takes, and it's unnatural. Like when
exactly.
if you take a step outside and you slip on the ice or something happens, your natural instinct is to protect yourself, is to try and get your hands down, is to try and protect yourself from actually taking a flat fall. Whereas with wrestling, if you do that, the potential for serious injury is there if you try to protect yourself in that way. So there's a certain way to fall, a certain way to bump, and we're sure to teach that when people come through our doors.
Is there, now let's be honest, if you're going to take a wrestling camp, is there a certain level of fitness that would be required in order for you to hang for even a weekend?
Yeah, there is. The camp itself is not going to be all about just doing a million squats and doing a million push-ups and all
Right.
those kind of things and all that cardiovascular, but it is absolutely it's required. You know what I mean? Regardless of people's size, people's weight, you do generally need to have some sort of a physical background or some sort of athleticism to be able to do this. Not everybody's going to have it, especially people that are attending a camp just to say live out a dream or whatever. And we're mindful of that. We're not here to hurt people. It's going to hurt anyways, but we're not here
Yeah.
to just run people through drills and that kind of stuff. But yeah, you absolutely need to have some sort of athleticism. It's it's wrestling. You're gonna feel it.
So I guess if you want to be a ring announcer, but wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Is
I mean that's the thing too. We as far as the wrestling school itself goes, like we train ring announcers, we train referees, managers, that kind of stuff as well.
so for the managers and the ring announcers, what sort of background would help? Not necessarily required, but would definitely help.
Yeah, so a DJ background would probably help. You know what I mean? Like talking on a mic in front of a crowd. But public speaking, that kind of stuff. You know, what I mean, I remember being in Toastmasters when I was in school. At one point. So like,
Nice,
just public speaking and being comfortable in front of audiences is probably not a bad thing. I think like I took drama in school, and that kind of stuff doesn't hurt at all.
nice, nice. I mean,
So I got a. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, go, 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 go.
I was just gonna say and I always ask this, whenever we do the pods, because I just always find it like really fascinating. Um, so you being a wrestler and involved in the game for as long as you are, um, are you able to watch, like, whether it's WWE or AEW or whatever wrestling, and can you sort of turn the worker part of your brain off and kind of just like invest as a fan, like you probably did when you were a kid?
It's tough. I think it's easier to do in a live atmosphere where you're just kind of a part of the ambiance and you're there and whatnot. But like, yeah, watching on TV, you're just thinking differently based on just being in the ring and all those kind of things. And
Right, because
naturally, I think
you know how the sausage is made. I mean, you know where all the wires are. So I'm sure if something that a layman like myself, for instance, wouldn't necessarily know about, I mean, you see it before it happens.
yeah, you can pick up on those things as you watch. You watch AEW, WWE, whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely, you pick up on those things. So when you're watching at home on TV, I think it's a little harder to get into the moment, but you can still enjoy it. I mean, there's still you know if I'm watching Chris Jericho on AEW, like I grew up a fan, I loved him. I remember exactly where I was when he made his WWE debut. You know what I mean? So like I can think
Best
back
debut
fondly
ever.
to memories like that.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely, I completely the best. Yeah, I
Countdown.
completely agree.
Woo!
Right? So
Yeah.
I can watch him as a fan because I was a fan before I got into this. But then you watch some of the other people on television that are new and you're not fully familiar with, and you're like, ooh, like okay, like there's some things that maybe they're doing that I wouldn't do, and it is what it is. But yeah, I think it live when you're there, it's a little easier to fully get in there and get into it as a fan as opposed to somebody that's been in the business.
Say
100%.
what?
Because yeah, I mean, I've been to a handful of AEW shows when they've come to Toronto, and yeah, I find myself uh, much more invested, and getting into the crowd chants and and just the suspension of disbelief.
Yep.
Whereas
Yep.
when I'm watching it at home, it's almost like
So,
my armchair Booker hat comes on, and I'm like, oh man, I wouldn't have put him over, or
Yeah,
I don't like I don't like how Tony booked this thing, and it's like I get that I'm a quote unquote smart fan, but sometimes I kind of wish, like, man, when I watched wrestling when I was like 8 years old, and I guess when I thought it was real or real enough, you know, like I enjoy the product as much, albeit in a different way.
I think that's the perfect way to put it. You enjoy it. I was just going to say in a different way now than you did when you were younger. Like you said, you believed it was real, and I think that's what made it so good. It
yeah.
doesn't. It could be anything. It could be UFC. It could be sports. It could be whatever. When like there's a reality to it. That's when it's better. It's easier to buy into. It's easier to believe. Unfortunately, wrestling right now is so exposed. People know
Cage
the
Match Dad.
intricacies, and yeah, like I don't know that it's fully dead. I think like you can work some people if you really want to and you really try. And people buy in. It's just knowing how to do it. But yeah, people are. It's talked about all the time on every podcast. People that have the most successful people in the business are on podcasts, and Al Snow's on Netflix talking about the intricacies of the business, and that's just where we are right now. So I think because fans and people that aren't in the business see this, there's a different level of understanding in how things go. So when people, I think back in the day, if let's say somebody a heel won a match, if you didn't like the heel, you just say, "Oh, that guy sucks," or you'd boo him or whatever because you weren't in the know. But now, because people know the lingo and the vernacular, um, I think instead of saying, "Oh, I boo, this sucks," it's like, "Oh, boo, this is a bad booking decision." You know what I mean? Like we know what we know now, and it's different. I think most of the times it's just a heel getting heat, but people are, they know that if they tune out, that and not tune in and watch the show because of the ratings, like they know that that's what they're fishing for is ratings. But you didn't know that as a kid, so your reactions were probably the same. But now knowing what you know, you're saying things that are, you know what I mean. Like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's just,
Yeah,
we know what we know now, and I think people react that way.
yeah, and I think and everyone's sort of in on it now. So, when when MJF is doing some super scummy shit, and I remember kind of just being in the crowd and kind of just looking around, and it's a bunch of folks in my age bracket, and they're they're having a lot of fun with it, and it's like people are booing him, but not really booing him for the reasons that they probably should have. It's more like, well, I'm being entertained by you, so I kind of want to participate in the show. Um, Contrasted to like a 7-year old girl who I was like sitting beside, and and when the heels got over, she was devastated by it, and it was so pure, and I kind of miss that a little bit as a fan. But since you brought it up, what did you think of that Netflix series with Al Snow, the OVW one?
Uh, I was super entertained. I had the opportunity 2013 maybe to go down to OVW and just work a
Yeah,
dark match there. So being in the building and just building up to that, just the ambiance and like the knowing what it was OVW, and it was a former WWE uh, developmental territory. So getting there was super cool to see it, and then seeing it all these years on Netflix was super cool. I was entertained. It was a good. Um, I think it was a good portrayal of just how tough things can be. I think it was played up a little bit because it's TV or whatever. But
Oh yeah.
no, I thought I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? I've gotten to do so like shows and seminars with Al Snow, so getting to see his personality shine through is exactly what my opinion, and it was what's the word I'm looking for? Like he was exactly the same way in the series that he was in those seminars
That's
and stuff like
awesome.
that. So yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, because I thought it did. I mean, when I first heard about it, I was a little. I don't want to say skeptical, but I was concerned that they're going to just portray OVW as this is the best thing since sliced bread, and we're the reason that John Cena is the biggest wrestler in the world, and I thought it did a good job of
Yeah.
just showing the hustle
The
aspect of
hustle.
it,
Yes.
and that's, yeah, I mean, you're gonna draw some crowds here and there where there's only 20 people there, and but the wheel keeps turning, and I thought it did a good job in highlighting the personalities, and especially I like the dynamic between Al Snow and the new owners.
yeah, absolutely. And how Al's wrestling mind is different from say a person with a business background's mind. You know what I mean? It's just there's
Yeah.
certain ways there's certain ways to navigate within the wrestling business, and just being a trainer and being in the business as long as they have. I've literally seen that where people get in, they're just like it just doesn't make sense to them, and it takes some proper training not only in the ring but outside the ring as well. There's just things to learn, and doesn't always make sense, but that's just the way it goes, unfortunately.
Yeah, and kind of just understanding the logic of, why he's, he puts some of the wrestlers in the position that he does, and why some people have to go over in some instances. Like I really enjoyed the bit where I forget the guy's name, but whoever was champion, and they had James Storm go over him with the intention of, okay, well, for the summer, the story is going to be the chase to redemption, you know, because I think as fans, you the sort of default position is, well, this guy is really popular, or this guy's my favorite, so just put the belt on him or keep the belt on him for perpetuity, and sometimes that sort of goes against what might be the greater story, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like they say, like the chase is always better than the reward. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, uh, once you once the chase is finished and you've paid that off, then what? You know what I mean? So you got to kind of sustain that run, but eventually, all good things got to come to an end, and the cycle repeats, and maybe it's with different people in those positions or and whatnot. But wrestling is just it's meant to take you on a roller coaster, and it's meant to make you feel emotions. And it can't be happy all the time. Maybe that happy feeling is going to feel a whole lot better. Maybe when you've gone through some negative feelings or some sad feelings, you know what I mean? Like just the redemption's going to feel a whole lot better. You know what I mean? If you've felt different emotions along the way.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I agree. Now, AJ, you've had the opportunity to wrestle in a gang of places outside of Winnipeg. Where would you say you had your most memorable moment, or has it happened yet?
That's a great question. I would say I've had memorable moments. So like getting to wrestle in front of 3,000 people in Mexico was super cool.
Nice,
Uh,
Very cool.
yeah,
nice.
yeah,
Oh.
When was
yeah.
that?
2012, Danny and CWE brought Conan up here, former WCW star Conan,
Oh
and we,
yeah.
Legend.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Woo.
So we did a seminar up here, and the winner of the seminar got to go down to Mexico and train with AAA for a little while. So I managed to win the seminar and got the opportunity to go down and train so I got to train with a gentleman by the name of El Gran Apache and Silver King of
Huh.
WCW fame. And then
Let's go.
I was able
Wow.
to get on in a dark match at a AAA TV taping. So that was super solid. So that's extremely memorable. Just hearing like just the roar of the crowd and just like the rumble. It's just something different than being at say a hall in front of 300 or 400 people.
Yeah.
There's something different there. So
It's
getting to wrestle in OVW, you know what I mean? Like it was a dark match again, but it was still just you know everybody that's walked through those walls and that venue and all that kind of stuff was super cool. So,
I've always I've always been curious since you brought up Mexico. One of the things I've always found super fascinating with like with pro wrestlers is sort of the ability to to work and tell a story where there might be a language barrier. Um, so working in Mexico, and I don't know uh, how many folks in AAA or in general, speak fluent English or so forth. Is it a challenge to maybe work with whether it's a Mexican wrestler or a Japanese or someone who doesn't speak fluent English?
so yeah, it poses a bit of a challenge because communication is going to be a little different. Luckily, if you're working with somebody that knows what they're doing, there's just kind of a universal wrestling language that I think we've all kind of figured out. So we're able to work together without having to verbally communicate by any means. So, um, but there's you're in a different country, in a foreign country, and it's just not what you're used to, and they don't speak English. So I'll give you a funny story of my match in AAA there.
Oh,
So when I got to the house, like it was a house that AAA owns, and we got put up in the house, and I get dropped off, and I don't know anybody there. I'm just sitting in this random house in Mexico City, and then in walks Psychosis, who I love in WCW. Yeah, so he walks in. I'm just like, oh wow, awesome! Like, hey, I introduce myself, and we chat a little bit, and he's super solid guy. I guess he's staying at the house as well, and then. So we get to the dark match, and Psychosis is kind of being extremely helpful. I got sick at one point. He showed me where to get like medication and that kind of stuff. So he's kind of, just he speaks English as well as Spanish. So he's been amazing in trying to help me out. So we get to the event, and it's a 6-person tag. And at one point, I'm just in the ring working out a little bit, and I can see Psychosis speaking with the bookers. And he looks over at me with all of them, and they kind of start giggling, and I'm just not paying attention. So rolling around again, so they pull me aside, and they're just like, hey, they've got this idea for the match. And I'm like, okay, whatever you need, of course. And then they look at each other, say something in Spanish, and they start laughing. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but they're saying something about me. So Psychosis turns and says, okay, you're going to be in the ring with one of the Exoticos, and they want to do a spot where the Exotico jumps into your arms, and they're going to, she is going to kiss you. But there's like, but don't worry, like, they won't even, it won't happen. You just, they'll put their fingers up and whatever. And I'm like, hey man, this is your world, whatever you need, no problem. And then we get to the match, and the Exotico, like, it was not anything like they said. The Exotico jumped into my arms, and then, just full on kissed me in front of 3,000 people. And there's a photo, it's somewhere, I can't find it, it's been a while, but there's a photo of me holding, I believe the person's name was Diva Salvage, and like, I'm holding, this gay gentleman is just kissing me on the lips just in front of a ton of people. So, but then just like the language barrier, them laughing at me, I know something's up. I don't know what's happening, but that's what happened.
Amazing.
that language, the language that you speak of, I've always thought of it as kind of like you guys tap into the Force on some Star Wars type shit.
Right.
Because it's this method of communication that's existed for a long time, that is shared by a small community of people, and it's the fact that you can say we just know, and that's something that Elle and I will never know. You know what I mean? If we were to walk into a wrestling ring, we'll never know that language, but because you do, you could walk into the ring and know.
A lot of it is body language too, learning how to anticipate and read body language, I think, which just comes with years of being in the ring and being put in positions where, you're either going to succeed or you're going to fail, and, it's just trial and error essentially. But yeah, body language is key.
Yeah, and there's a lot of wrestlers who, I think CM Punk famously said one time that he, usually hates even discussing spots in his matches beforehand, or maybe that's just with certain people. But just the idea that you can meet someone before a show, not even necessarily discuss the match, just get in the ring and still put on a banger, like improvise.
Yeah, that happened. Yeah, that happened to me not too long ago for Winnipeg Pro Wrestling in Winnipeg. I got in the ring with a gentleman by the name of Jossie, and the border held him up a little bit, and he literally arrived, just minutes before we walked through the curtain, and we just, you go out and just do it. But yeah, no, it's, there's different beliefs on speaking before the match, and different beliefs on just getting in there and doing it and feeling the crowd. I always like, when I'm speaking with students and stuff like that, I say, like, a lot of the old school guys will say you just get in the ring and you just go and you just do it, you figure it out. But then you hear stories of, like, WrestleMania 3, Macho Man, Ricky Steamboat, which many people regard as like the best match ever. Savage wrote down word for word what they were going to do in it. You know what I mean? So Yeah, there's like it was in
Wow.
maybe one of the dark side of the rings or something like that, where they said like he literally wrote out word for word what's going to happen when and where. So that's regarded as like one of the best matches of all time, and by the sounds of it, was completely figured out beforehand. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Yeah, I remember. I remember watching an interview with Kevin Steen, well, I guess Kevin Owens, um, and I guess much like you, he I guess hated his training. I think Jacques Rougeau was his trainer,
Right.
Oh.
and he had mentioned how um, for I don't know how long, but yeah, but all the majority of his matches, like with his promotion, yeah, they're all scripted, like front to back to a T, and he was just kind of like, this is cool to do maybe once or twice or the first couple matches, but it's like, well, I'm trying to learn how to work, you know, and I don't think, you know, doing such a rigid thing when you can't really play off of the crowd or take some liberties. But then again, if you're saying that that Macho Man Steamboat match was fully scripted, and I mean, who's to say what's the the right way?
Mm. That's kind of my stance as well. Like I think the best events have a variety of things. You know what I mean? Guys that just go in there and you get the old school heavyweight, you know, two big guys beating each other up. Having maybe there's a women's match on the card, maybe there's a tag match, maybe there's a match that's more of a lucha libre style where it's a little more choreographed. Like I believe in just variety is the spice of life. You know what I mean? That's what they say. So um, having a bit of everything is always good. And as a performer, being able to do a bit of everything is just going to make you an asset on every show.
So do you have a favorite opponent or even like a favorite type of opponent?
So favorite type, um, somebody smaller, to be honest. Yeah, when I get in the ring with guys like Tyler Colton, and you know, I mean, I've had the opportunity to work with like a Harry Smith and all these big
Slapping meat.
heavyweights.
Slapping meat.
Uh, yeah, yeah, but I know that they're going to throw me around and like because they're my size or bigger than me.
Yeah.
So, you know, knowing that you're going to get thrown around for 15, 20 minutes isn't super fun for me. So,
That's fair.
you know, when I get into the ring with
Okay.
a smaller guy, you know what I mean? Maybe it's me throwing them around as opposed to the other way. So, favorite type of opponent, I'd say somebody that's a little bit smaller. I feel like you know that's probably more enjoyable. But as far as favorite opponent, like tough to list, but guys like Danny Duggan, Mentolo, Tyler Colton out here in Winnipeg. I've had battles with those guys.
Hell
Guys
yeah.
like Chad Daniels, James Roth, Sammy Peppers, Bryce Bentley, a lot of the young boys coming up. Josh Holiday, getting the opportunity to get in the ring with those guys that I've worked with and taught. Those are always enjoyable. There's so many different people for different reasons.
As a wrestling fan, if you were to put on your wrestling fan hat on, who out there right now is really exciting you and it doesn't matter if it's on television or not. Who is really like that you've encountered where you're like, whoa, this person is gonna really go far.
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, if we're talking television, I would imagine like MJF is. I guess it could be argued that he's gone pretty far already, but I think he's extremely entertaining.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes I think, and I encountered this when I was younger. Sometimes when he's working as a heel, he's being a little too funny.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and then which is great, but a heel's job is to make people dislike you. So, and I remember running into that problem when I was younger, still figuring things out too. Whereas like I was being a heel, but doing things in a way where people were laughing with me and not at me.
Mm.
So it's interesting to watch him kind of figure those things out. That's I'm assuming why they put them babyface because
Yeah.
people were starting to cheer him
They
because he was
they
so entertaining.
they
Oh
couldn't
yeah.
they couldn't boo him any longer. He was just
No,
he's too
and
entertaining.
absolutely, and that's great. Like that was The Rock back in the late '90s. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they start die Rocky die, and then you get to realize like he's
Yeah.
a phenomenal entertainer, and eventually, especially in this day and age, I think people are aware that this is a show, so it's harder and harder to be a heel because when you're an effective and good heel, people instead of hating you like they used to, go, "Wow, he's really good at his job,"
Yeah.
and start to respect you, and that eventually leads to them enjoying your work and liking you. So, but yeah, on TV, I'd say MJF is
Okay.
extremely entertaining. Locally here in Winnipeg, Chad Daniels is the guy that's really making some
No
waves and
bias or
is getting
anything.
out there. Well, I mean, I don't like the guy anymore.
Not like you're lying or anything, but
No, like, yeah, I don't care for the guy much anymore. But like, if, real recognizes real, however you want to call it. He's getting very good, and seeing him develop is super cool. He's getting out there doing things like Jacques Rougeau's Wrestling Academy, and he's going for it, and he's put in the work, and it still continues to put in the work. So locally, he's extremely fun to watch. Any of my students here locally, though, the Sammy Peppers, the Bryce Bentleys, the James Ross, the Kevin O'Doyles, Josh Holiday, those guys. I sit there and watch their matches all day. For my own personal reasons, but because I want to see what they can do, and I'm entertained as well.
I know with CWE, the aim is to become a national wrestling entity because there's no real national wrestling entity in Canada. How far off do you think we are from having, whether it's CWE or just in general, how far off do you think you are from having a national pro wrestling presence?
That's it may be a ways away. CWE, as far as here in Canada, is
It's
putting
close
in the
as
work. And what's that?
it's as close as you're getting right now.
I would say so, yeah. Like, and prior to the pandemic, I mean, we were doing upwards of 38 shows in 38 days from
Damn.
Ontario, Ontario,
Woo.
Quebec, all the way to BC. So, those are a large undertaking. A lot of the credit goes to not only Danny Duggan, but it takes a lot of people within those towns and around, like, to make things like that happen. So any of the sponsors, any of the people that are helping out, flyering, postering, promoting within each market, it takes a lot of people to come together and to make something like that work, and not only work but be successful. So, um, quick plug: like if you go on, I think it's Tubi TV, TUBI, and search up Road Warriors. There was a documentary that we had shot a couple years ago, just
Excellent
what it
job.
looks like to.
Oh,
Yeah,
crazy.
good. I'm glad. Yeah, it's just
I've
a
seen
small insight.
that. Yeah, I've seen that in like my
I
recommended
saw
on
it.
Tubi before. I had no idea. All right.
Yeah, I'm biased, so but I thought it was super entertaining. You know what I mean?
It's
And
dope.
getting just to see just a small piece of what goes into doing a tour like that was,
Yeah.
I thought it was entertaining. But it's work, man. It's a lot of work, and there are other companies. Like there's a company called the CWF, and they tour a lot of the northern communities throughout Quebec and Ontario and stuff like that. But it's a grind, man. If you thought being a wrestler locally in general is just a grind, try grinding 30 plus shows in 30 days in different markets with different
Yeah.
people. Man, it's work. So, but yeah, CWE, 100%. They're giving it a go. We're back at it like next week with a 10-day, 10-show tour. So,
Sick.
starting to maybe get back to that touring schedule again.
That would be
Man,
so awesome.
I mean, I've been fortunate. Like I produce and DJ bits, and I've been fortunate to have gone on tour a couple times, and the biggest one I ever did was, I want to say it was like 21 or 22 dates over, I want to say 26 or 27 days. So nothing
Yeah,
quite as crazy as that, but damn, like by day nine, like my ass is ready to go back home. Just the just the traveling, and just mentally trying to get up and do it after 8 days in a row and you haven't been home and so forth. I think folks definitely make it look easy, but like you said, it's a ton of work. It's taxing mentally, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not for everybody, and there's nothing wrong with that, But personally, I love being on the road. I love driving the highways and just blaring loud music. You know what I mean? Like I've loved that since I was very young. So,
Yeah.
but
Honestly,
yeah,
the time in between the shows was almost as fun as the shows themselves.
yeah, absolutely. You get to bond and you get to chat with people on a deeper level, and what I mean, it's just like I said, I love being on the road. But like when you're on a wrestling tour, it's like, to get to the venue, you got to set up that ring. So
Mhm.
you're at the venue at 3 o'clock, setting up the ring. You got to get in the ring, perform. You got to tear down the ring, and then usually there's an after party to go to, which may involve a couple drinks, and then
May.
yeah, depending on where you're going, sometimes that drive is 6 to 8 hours the next day. So
Curious.
you're up at 6 a.m. trying to get on the road to make sure you make the next town, and it's wrestling, so if something can go wrong, it will. So you always got to try and be prepared for that as well. So yeah, it's taxing. It definitely is. Um, Not for everybody, but I thoroughly enjoy being on the road.
Which brings me to one of my last questions. It is very mentally taxing. This business is it can beat you up mentally. How do you work your way around those moments?
That's a good question. Personally, I mean, I love being in the ring and I love being on the road. So when you get to that point where you're a little burnt out and tired or whatnot, you're missing home. I think you pull yourself back and you just look and realize like you're literally living on the road and making a living at this, and this is your dream. And you know what I mean?
You
It's
go
like,
day to
to me, it's
day.
all about perspective. So
Yeah.
if you can sit back and just realize like, yeah, okay, you're tired, you know what I mean, but you committed to this, and not only that, you love this. So what do you like? You know what I mean? So it's all about perspective and a lot of things for me, and you know, getting to realize that you're living the dream here, brother. Makes all the
Hell yeah.
difference. Yeah,
Hell yeah.
Yes, sir.
yeah.
So, do you have? I mean, everyone has goals and bucket lists and so forth. Um, is there anything? Is there anything that you have on your bucket list that you haven't achieved yet that you're really sort of pushing towards?
Uh, Not to say like nothing specific. I'm getting older, so um, I realize that maybe the dream of something bigger is not quite attainable or in the cards at this point. Um, the plan is I guess the latest big thing is being a part of Jacques Rougeau's Wrestling Academy 2024. Um,
Hey,
Winner gets $10,000, and they've
Let's go.
sent some people to go. Yeah, they sent some people to go train down at the Nightmare Factory in Atlanta. So
oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. So Jacques Rougeau's doing some big things out in Montreal, which is super cool.
Love it.
So that I think, as far as like bigger, might is on the list. So we'll see where that takes me, and then just here locally, figuring out training and kind of doing that. I work with all the companies here locally. I just believe in trying to make wrestling better, and teaching, and that's kind of where my focus is these days, is just trying to produce the next crop of talent to keep things fresh here in the city.
And
And
that's
so,
that's clutch. That's clutch.
Yeah, man.
and
Yeah, I just it was a case of like I said, my training was not good. So it's not only is it rewarding, but it's like I want to make sure that people are being set in the right direction, if this is something that they want to do. And like getting to see some of these young guys at 2, 3 years in, figuring things out and picking things up that Lord took me, 10 years to figure out. It doesn't always click that quick for everybody, but when it does, it's super fun to see all these young guys develop and get better.
That's awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, I've got a part serious, part joke question.
Okay. Shoot. Yeah.
Do y'all audition for talent, or is it more a
Oh,
case of, or is it more a case of Hey, I want to do this. You guys hiring?
Can you sell some tickets, brother? Then that
All about selling tickets. Goddamn. Hell
Ass,
yeah.
that
asses in
that
seats, bro.
Oh, hell
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Hell
it's
yeah.
a grassroots business at this level, so I don't know that I would say audition, but if the circumstance is right, some people have gotten in the ring that maybe hadn't completed the full training course.
Mhm.
So there's ways.
I pose the question because for anyone who watches this when it'll be streaming on demand via Spotify, there are going to be folks that are genuinely wondering how to get in, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So just for those folks, that's why I asked that question.
Yeah, absolutely. If wrestling is something you're interested in getting into, I always tell people, do your research. There are people that are out there posing as trainers and teachers that
Ooh.
don't have the knowledge, haven't put in the miles or worked with the right people uh, to make sure that they know all that they need to know. So if it's something that people are serious about and want to get into, do your research, search in your region, and see who's training, who's teaching. If nothing else, shoot me a message. I'm pretty aware of all the training schools throughout the country, and can kind of help point you in the right direction. But yeah, that's a big thing is making sure and ensuring that the people that are teaching you are teaching you properly. There's no one way to do things. Everybody has different beliefs, but at the end of the day, like there are things that you just need to know, and you're paying for an education is what you're doing. So
Yeah.
if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. If
Yeah.
if I'm paid next to nothing to go to med school, well, I'm probably not really going to med school. You know what I mean?
I don't
Like
know where you're
that's
going, but
yeah, right. So costs money. It costs money for that education. So
Bro, I
um,
got a
you know,
great deal. It was 94% off.
yeah, right. That's,
and I get a pair
yeah,
of
so
wrestling tights.
right. So you you just do your research. That's all I would say is if this is something you want to do, or anybody decides they want to do your research, figure out who's
Straight up.
teaching, and just look at what they've done. And they don't just because they weren't on TV or in WWE. Like obviously, if you're learning from somebody that has been there, you're going to get a wealth of information that maybe somebody at this level is not going to give you. But I do believe that there still are trainers at this level that understand the intricacies and all the little things, and you can still get a solid foundation and education from somebody that maybe hasn't been on television.
There you go. There you go.
There you go.
Yes,
AJ
sir.
Sanchez, you've got the show on the 17th.
17th, Winnipeg, Holy Eucharist Hall on Monroe Avenue. And then December 1st, Winnipeg Pro Wrestling is at the West End Cultural Center.
Right.
But I believe that show is sold out like they normally are. So,
Yes.
Let's
but
go.
tune in. Yeah, man. Tune into, all things Winnipeg Wrestling, Winnipeg Pro Wrestling, Canadian Wrestling. They're doing big things, man, which is great.
And
And
then
is it
the
and
camp.
is it
Talk about the camp.
oh, sorry, I was gonna ask. And is that like available like on streaming or like Fight TV or anything like that?
So if you search up Winnipeg Pro Wrestling on YouTube, you can find all of their matches there. And then if you go to the Canadian Wrestling's Elite Facebook page, as well as their YouTube page, but I think a lot of the videos are being uploaded to their Facebook page these days.
Okay.
So CWE Canadian Wrestling's Elite. Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. So the camp, if people want to reach out to attend the camp in December, how should they contact you?
They can get at me at my email, which is ajsanchez66, all one word, at hotmail.com. That's pretty much it. Yeah, and, we've advertised on a lot of the local wrestling Facebook pages, but AJ Sanchez 66 at hotmail.com. They can reach out and or find me on Facebook, AJ Sanchez La Rock. I'm on there as well, so it's probably the best bet.
Dope. Dope. AJ Sanchez, we would like to thank you very much for blessing the podcast. Blessing the
Yes, thank
podcast.
you.
It was great having you on, and I want you to know that if you ever want help promoting anything, this podcast exists so we can help you do that.